There was a time when children's television genuinely respected kids enough to actually scare them. Before colourful preschool shows dominated our screens, kids grew up watching shows about aliens, ghosts, monsters, mind control and death. And somehow, we loved every minute of it. So here are 10 children's TV shows that were far darker than anyone remembers. Starting off our list is Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids. If you grew up in the early 2000s, this show probably gave you some nightmares. Each episode told the story of a child with a terrible personality. They were either greedy, selfish, lazy, or cruel. And by the end, they usually received a punishment that was far more horrifying than you would ever expect from a children's cartoon. The kids were turned into statues, trapped forever, or suffered ironic fates that were genuinely disturbing.
I teach little children to keep a civil tongue in their heads. So, those aren't slugs in your pocket? No, they are children's tongues.
But what made the show so memorable wasn't just the creepy animation style. It was the fact that their actions had real consequences. And unlike modern kids' TV, not every ending was a happy one. Round the Twist looks like your average Australian family comedy. Until things got really weird. The show followed the Twist family after they moved into an old lighthouse, where they constantly encountered ghosts, curses, and bizarre supernatural events. One episode might feature a haunted doll, while another had a very creepy Santa Claus who outstayed his welcome.
Where'd you get the fingernails? Claus. Santa Claus.
And there's even one episode where Bronson uses his male appendage as a propeller so he can fly to the rescue and save his brother. It's a balanced comedy with some genuinely horrific moments, and some episodes became unforgettable simply because of how strange and unsettling they were. Freaky Stories, the show about urban legends. Each episode began with the famous line, "This is a true story. It happened to a friend of a friend of mine." Before it launches into bizarre tales involving haunted objects, mutant creatures, cursed places, body horror, and other strange, unusual, supernatural events. It blended dark comedy with genuinely creepy storytelling. While many of the stories were exaggerated or inspired by urban legends, they were presented just seriously enough to make you wonder, what if they were actually true? By looking back, it's surprising how many unsettling themes this series explored. It wasn't afraid to dive into paranoia, transformation, revenge, and the unknown, making it one of the most underrated creepy kids shows of the late 90s. Now imagine your school principal could literally control your mind. That's the terrifying premise behind the Demon Headmaster. A seemingly ordinary headmaster uses hypnotic powers to brainwash students into becoming perfectly obedient, while a small group of children try to expose him for it. But what made the series so frightening was that the villain wasn't just some monster hiding under your bed. He was an adult in a position of authority, making this threat level feel surprisingly real. For many kids, Goosebumps was their introduction to horror, based on the best-selling books by R.L. Stine. Every episode introduced a brand new nightmare, from haunted masks and killer scarecrows to evil ventriloquist dummies and cursed cameras. But unlike most children's shows, the heroes didn't always win. Sometimes the monsters escaped, sometimes the curse remained, and sometimes the ending left viewers wondering if the nightmare had only just begun.
I'll be seeing you real soon, cousins.
You Afraid of the Dark took horror one step further. Each episode began with the members of the Midnight Society gathering around a campfire to tell terrifying stories. Stories involving haunted houses, ghosts, cursed objects, and creatures lurking in the darkness. But what separated it from other kids' shows was how seriously it treated its audience. Many stories dealt with grief, death, and loss, creating emotional horror that stayed with the viewer long after the credits rolled.
You promised to visit me. I didn't want to be alone on that day. That day is the worst day, and you didn't come. It was a very lonely day for me, Stacy. And do you know why? It was my anniversary 10 years ago. On that day is the day I died.
Jim Henson's The Storyteller wasn't just another fairy tale series. Each episode adapted ancient European folklore filled with witches, trolls, giants, devils, and tragic heroes. And these weren't your sanitized Disney versions either. Many stories ended with sacrifice, heartache, and bittersweet lessons. It even features a story about a soldier getting punished by being locked out of both heaven and hell for his crimes against nature.
I am the soldier who took death prisoner, and I have brought 200 souls from hell in the hope that God will forgive me and let me in with them.
The souls may enter, but alone.
And with the incredible creatures effects, the dark atmosphere, and mature storytelling, it felt more like an adult fantasy series that just happened to be suitable for children.
Waited and waited, an inch from paradise, until after a long time, forgotten, he turned and walked slowly back to Earth.
On the surface, Animorphs looks like your simple sci-fi adventure about teenagers who could transform into animals. But in reality, it's a story about war. A group of teenagers secretly fought an alien invasion, where the enemy can take control of anyone's body. But as the series progressed, the characters were forced to make impossible moral decisions, while dealing with fear, trauma, and the psychological cost of fighting a war that no one else even knew existed. Looking back, it's hard to believe that this was aimed at kids.
You have failed once again.
So weird. This isn't your typical Disney Channel adventure series, but it quickly became something much, much darker. The show follows Fiona Phillips, a teenager traveling across America with her rock star mother. But wherever she goes, she encounters the unexplained. Ghosts, haunted towns, ancient curses, UFO sightings. Determined to uncover the truth, she documents each mystery while searching for answers about her own father's mysterious death. But what made So Weird stand out was how seriously it treated the paranormal. Rather than just play everything for laughs, the show built genuine suspense.
Balance? What balance? You took my father when I was 3! How fair is that?
Looking back, it's hard to believe that this aired on the Disney Channel.
It was not
With its eerie atmosphere, mature storytelling, and willingness to embrace the unknown, So Weird felt just less like your typical kids show and more like the X-Files for a younger audience. And taking the number 1 spot is Jeopardy, and in my opinion, one of the darkest and most underrated children's TV shows ever made. The series follows a group of Scottish students travelling through the Australian outback to film UFOs. But after one of them mysteriously disappears, the expedition slowly unravels into paranoia, fear, and psychological horror.
Missy, we're coming! The trees are trying to warn us. What?
But what made Jeopardy so unforgettable was how grounded it felt. Filmed in a documentary style with handheld cameras, it blurred the line between fiction and reality, making every strange encounter feel believable. But unlike most children's shows of the time, it didn't really rely on monsters or jump scares. It built tension through isolation, mystery, and psychological fear.
We're being watched. I know we are. This is gone. Mr. Simmons just disappeared as well. What are we gonna do? What if the boys have gone too?
It explored themes of loss, obsession, distrust, government secrecy, and the fear of the unknown. All while refusing to give viewers easy answers. It's exactly the kind of intelligent, atmospheric storytelling that made children's television from this era so unique. and one of the reasons so many people still remember Jeopardy more than 20 years later. It wasn't just one of the darkest kids shows ever made, it was one of the most unsettling TV shows of its era. Looking back, what's fascinating isn't that these shows were scary. It's why they were scary. They trusted children with stories about death, loss, fear, and loneliness, instead of protecting them from every uncomfortable idea. Modern kids' TV tends to focus on bright colours, faster pacing, and safer storytelling. But these classics prove that younger audiences could handle complex, thought-provoking stories. And that's probably why we're still talking about them decades later.